We're here at GreenFin 24 with our guest today, Graham Sinclair. Graham is with Harvard University Extension. Tell us about that, Graham. You're in a unique set of guests today.
That's very kind. Thank you so much, Paul. Harvard Extension School is part of Harvard that's actually been around for over a century. Not a lot of people know about it. It's targeted at professionals, working people who didn't get the opportunity, perhaps the first go round, to extend their learning. It goes from non-degree courses all the way to we have a master's in sustainability. It's actually the only school at Harvard to have a named sustainability master's program. What I really like about it is I get such a range of students. I get 20-somethings to 60-somethings. And I teach digitally, so that means I can get students from all around the world, which when I'm teaching sustainability and sustainable investment, I think that's the right way to teach it, because you have humans literally living different lives, different careers, different fields, different backgrounds. And it gets pretty real when you've got someone in Tanzania who has to turn off their camera to save bandwidth. You get someone struggling to understand what one of their team members said because they've got an accent. It makes it pretty real when you talk about sustainability issues.
And how are you finding the students that you work with focusing on sustainability issues within their own neighborhood or their own country?
Sure.
And how is that unfolding now across how many years have you been teaching now?
I've only been teaching 4 years now.
Okay.
I was teaching MBAs in a classic US 2-year program. I was always the second-year elective, which is a very different experience with an MBA, especially a US-style MBA where they've done the boot camp for the first year. Second year, I was the elective. Let's learn about sustainability or sustainable investment. Here teaching at Harvard Extension School, whether they're doing the full-on masters or they're just looking to upskill themselves, what I'm really experiencing is that you've got a range of students. Some of them have always wanted to do something like this, but they were doing their medicine degree or their law degree or engineering or something. There are others, this is partly the talent moving towards where the opportunity is and towards what they would rather be doing. There's so many people who want to add this to their existing skill set. Or indeed, I've had all the way up to $1 billion chief investment officer, 50-something, who was sent off by the CEO who said, look, the sustainability thing, you need to understand it. You are the chief investment officer. This seems to be important. They agreed it was important. And so the approach that the CIO took was said, well, I might as well do a master's in this, and then showed up at Harvard Extension School.
Now, here in the US and in Europe, of course, and the UK, there's a lot of focus now on regulatory and the environments and regulatory focus over the next few years that people are expecting a lot of regs to come into play. How are you? You've got students from other parts of the world that aren't dealing with this part of the longer-term sustainability objectives, right? And what does that look like from your perspective?
I'd reflect, look, out of law school, my first role was at a retirement fund consulting shop where we serviced pension funds, mostly for company-sponsored pension funds. So really from the first days of my career, I took the law degree, the business background, later on an MBA, and was dealing with, well, how are we going to implement this for companies and for long-term investment decisions? So fast forward a couple of decades, and here we are, the same issues keep coming up. Indeed, it is a few minutes ago here at GreenFin 24, I was talking about the Access to Nutrition Index, which I co-designed from 2008 to 2013 for the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition with funding from the Gates Foundation and the Children's Investment Fund Foundation and others. These are situations where soft law becomes hard law on a spectrum, right? So we know companies are very competitive. We know investors are very competitive. You're always making choices, substitute decisions, alternative decisions. So when one thinks about regulation and drivers, which absolutely are very important, are fundamentally changing the way companies are thinking about their supply chains, are changing the way investors think about what label they put on their fund, right? Whether it's Article 6, 8, or 9 in Europe, for example, or the Financial Conduct Authority in the UK have very clear guidelines on what fund managers and portfolio managers can be saying about their funds, what they can claim to do, and what kind of reporting they need to deliver. So there's always the spectrum from starts off as a good idea to, hey, the best companies are doing this, should we be competing on it? Moving forward all the way through to, no, then it becomes some version of law or regulation, depending on what country you're on. And to end with the point that I think you were indicating was that it's different from country to country, right? So one of the things I like to say is, carbon dioxide, a molecule, floats in the air as diffuse as the espresso grounds in your black coffee, but carbon molecules don't care if there's a line on a map, right? One of the craziest things always for me growing up as a South African is that there's a straight line between South Africa and what is now Namibia. It was always bizarre to me that someone drew a line down the middle of a desert. It was later, when I was in the double digits, I realized there wasn't really a line in the desert. And so in many of these situations dealing with global students, they have their very local context and the conversation that needs to happen globally. And that's very helpful both in the work that I do as a strategist and when I'm teaching.
So I've got one more question for you, Graham, and I appreciate you taking the time today. Do you find that there are differences across generations in the people that take your courses and the people that you work with on an ongoing basis?
I'm smiling because one of the feedback I got halfway through this last semester was one of the elder students based here in the US was not happy that he had to deliver slides and Google Slides because he couldn't figure out this finagle thing. So straight away, and as for me, for maybe your other guests, there's always these little barriers along the way we got to figure out. I'm hip and cool because I use memes now in my course, which the youngers seem to like, Paul. So no, there's some difference. You got to kind of reach for the common ground across what are applicable means or favorite music and so on. Yeah, absolutely. There are some of those differences, but if I get it right, either in my work where I'm working with investors, with 20-something third generation, or CIO, pension fund trustees, for example, there's already an age range there, or indeed with my students, there's an age range. If I'm effective in the way I'm communicating and developing guidance and strategy, then I'm finding ways for them to connect on the topic, on the issue, and wherever possible, I'm going to try and find some humor or some wit or kind of compare and contrast. Hey, these were cars in the 50s, these are cars now, and maybe we should all be riding bicycles. So if I can find a way for humans to connect, then I can start to be effective either in my strategy work or in my teaching.
Graham, keep doing what you're doing, man. It's really important to the rest of us that you're out there doing this good work. And we really appreciate your taking the time to come by and speak with us at GreenFin 24.
Thank you so much.